Due to a busier than usual schedule this week, we're going to rerun last year's episode of This Day in History for January 14th. My apologies. I thank you for your loyalty and your understanding, and I hope to be making new episodes very soon. Hi, and welcome to This Day in History for January 14th. January 14th is the 14th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 351 days remaining to the end of the year, except for leap years, which have 352 days remaining to the end of the year. We're still looking at words that have multiple meanings, and today's word is shingle. As a noun, shingle can mean a tile laid in overlapping rows to cover walls or roofs, or a small signboard indicating a professional office, as in to hang one's shingle, or a woman's close-cropped haircut tapering from the back of the head to the nape. These usages probably come from Latin scingula, which means a thin piece of wood, with the earliest documented use being the year 1200. As a noun, the word shingle can also refer to water-worn pebbles found on the beach, or a place where such pebbles are found. And this usage is of uncertain origin, but the earliest documented use is 1513. Shingle can also be used as a verb, in which case it can mean to cover with shingles, or to lay out something in an overlapping manner, to cut hair in a shingle. And again, the source of this use is from the Latin scingula, which means a thin piece of wood, whose earliest documented use is the year 1200. Shingle can also be used as a verb that means to squeeze or hammer puddled iron to remove impurities. From the French singler, to whip or beat, from German zangeln, from zangi, which means tongs. And the earliest documented use for that meaning is 1674. Don't know if you can see this little rainbow up on the wall behind me. I have a crystal, a faceted crystal hanging in my window, and the sun has moved around so that it's sending rainbows into the room, flinging happiness all over the place. So if you ever notice rainbows on the wall behind me, that's where they come from. They're rather ephemeral. They just come out during a certain time of the day and don't stay long. They move a little bit and then they're gone, but they come back the next day if the sun is out, so that's nice. Moving on, we're going to start with the year 1639 with the first colonial constitution. In Hartford, Connecticut, the first constitution in the American colonies, called the Fundamental Orders, were adopted by representatives of Wethersfield, Windsor, and Hartford. In 1741, the infamous American trader Benedict Arnold was born. On this day in 1784, the Continental Congress ratified the Treaty of Paris, ending the War for Independence. On this day in 1875, Albert Schweitzer was born. He was a theologian, musician, and philosopher, also a prize-winning physician. He was born on this day in Germany. He lived most of his life serving humanity as a missionary in Africa. And when he won the Nobel Prize, he used it to support his mission by building or adding on to the hospital that he had there. On this day in 1920, John Dodge, who with his brother Horace founded the Dodge Brothers Company, which was once America's third largest automaker, later became part of Chrysler. Well, John Dodge died on January 14th, 1920 at the age of 55. On this day in 1943, FDR became the first president to travel on official presidential business by air when he took a trip across the Atlantic to meet Winston Churchill at Casablanca in North Africa. Marilyn Monroe and Joe Dimaggio first met in 1952. They dated for a couple years and got married on January 14th, 1954. They honeymooned in Japan, but while they were there, Marilyn got a call to go perform for the troops in South Korea, which she did, but she left Joe in Japan on their honeymoon. He didn't like that very much. Unfortunately, things didn't get better from there, and they ended up divorcing about 9 months later. I suspect he continued to love her for the rest of his life because he was the one that came and helped her out when she went in the hospital, and he was the one who paid for her funeral when she died. On this day in 1963, George Wallace was inaugurated as the governor of Alabama. He had promised his followers everlasting segregation. Some years later, he ran for president, but was shot by a man with mental health issues, which paralyzed Wallace and caused him to be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. To his credit, I must report that he was not a virulent racist his entire life. George Wallace did rethink his racist views and repented of them. On this day in 1969, an explosion aboard the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise killed 27 people in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. A rocket had accidentally detonated. Now, how exactly does that happen? I'm not sure, but anyway. The explosion destroyed 15 planes and injured more than 300 people. On this day in 1970, Diana Ross and the Supremes performed their final concert. They were an extremely successful American pop group in the 1960s, a group whose 12 #1 hits in the first full decade of the rock and roll era placed them only behind Elvis and the Beatles in terms of chart dominance. They helped define the very sound of the 60s. But like fellow icons, Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, they came apart in the first year of the 70s. The curtain closed for good on Diana Ross and the Supremes on January 14, 1970 at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. On this day in 1980, gold prices soared. After being released from government control, gold reached a new record price on January 14, 1980, exceeding $800 an ounce. The price of gold, along with the prices of silver and platinum, vary on a daily basis, changing up and down like the stock market. And I think that's going to do it for us today. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and feel free to share. Don't forget to add your opinions in the comment section below. And thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. The first president to travel. I am happy to report. I don't know how all that's going to go together, or if it's even going to make it to the video. We'll just see. Changing it up.